We spent quite a bit of time on this headlight bucket. Wore out about a half a dozen cutoff wheels, little Dremel cutoff wheels. But I think we've got the headlight to lay in there pretty well now. Put a little light on the subject there. You can see we've opened this slot up and opened that slot up. And we opened the bottom slot up. But the real problem was we had to remove all of this material down inside the bucket. You can see there and around to there. And we had to do that because of this LED that they have in there. That's if there's anything I don't care for on this light. It's the LED down in the bottom. Now we don't have to wire it up, but it is a protrusion here on the back side of the bulb, and it didn't want to fit in that bucket and lay down in there. So we'll decide, I don't know, we could use it as a running light or a turn signal maybe. Of course, it's not something that would have been original, and it may not look too spiffy when we get done, but we'll determine that later. The big thing is to get this bulb to lay down in this pocket and locate this lens or this bulb in here so that it sits flush. And I think we've accomplished that. At least we had a minute ago. Now, of course, things don't want to fit the same way now, but it's pretty much down in there. And the thing is now our retaining ring fits nice and snug. We'll go ahead and put a screw in there, maybe. Fumble fingers doesn't drop it. Should be 3 of these screws really to hold this retainer in place. That was just not quite long enough to catch that hole. Neither one of them are really. May have to get a little bit longer screw, but we do have our lens down in there nice and tight, and then this framework goes on here, this outer housing, and there's a latch that they make for the bottom. We don't have, we're going to have to get that. So this is the net result, and to me that looks more like an original deal. Now, early TCs had a flat lens and later TCs have a curved lens, but I just kind of like that flat lens instead of that buggy looking sealed beam light sticking out of there. I don't care for this gap around here. And I may see if I can find some sort of big rubber O-ring to go in there and kind of fill in that gap a little bit so you don't see those screws. And of course, this particular light, you adjust it on this bucket that it sits on down here. You can turn it side to side and tilt it up and down, so that comes later. But that's going to be the net result on that headlight, and like I said, I just like that a little better. Now, some of these aftermarket headlights, not all of them have the LED down in there. Some of them have a separate bulb, and that may be more to someone's liking than this particular one, but you know, here in the backyard we use what we got. So this is what we got, this is what we're going to use, and we'll move on to the next project. I'm going to hook a battery up to this light and see how it works. And so one of the things we need to know is if this light will work with positive ground, because the MG is 12 volt positive ground. So we're going to hook our positive up to the ground wire, and the green wire is low beam. So there you go, there's the low beam. And there's the high beam, that's good and bright. So the headlight portion definitely works either way, positive or negative ground. Let's try the LED light. So in this particular case, the white wire is ground. We'll hook our ground wire up to the white. The red wire should be the turn signal, and there it's fairly bright. And the black wire should be a parking light, not quite so bright. So we know that that works. Now let's try making it positive ground. So we'll hook our positive connection up to the ground wire, which is the white, and the red wire, I forgot already, is the turn signal. Oops. Doesn't work. And the park light. Oops. Doesn't work. So that'll solve one problem. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to wire up the LED, because it needs to have negative ground rather than positive ground. I'm not an electrical genius. I don't know why that is, but that's the deal. So we'll just use the headlight portion of this light and be happy with that. So I didn't like that gap between the outer housing and the headlight ring, so I took some hose. I don't know what size that is, 3/16, something like that, 1/4 inch maybe, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And cut a piece to just wrap around that headlight, kind of snug. Put a little pin in the end there to hold the two ends together. Now let's see if this goes back on there now, how that's going to work. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Yeah, seems like that snapped on there. Now we're definitely going to have to get the little latch that holds that, but in essence, that filled in that area around there. So all you see now is that black rubber ring. Hopefully that'll keep the rain and stuff out a little bit when if you happen to be driving in a monsoon. Don't know, not going to be super efficient, but it might help, and certainly looks a little better, so we'll make that part of our repertoire. It's going to be important. There's, like I said, there's a little latch that goes in here in the bottom that holds that framework on there tight, and I'm sure that somebody sells it. We'll get one. Whether it will work or not with our modern headlight bucket is another story. It may not. So in that case, what we might have to do is figure out how to put a screw up through there and run a screw in to hold that in. We'll have to have a look at that. Take the bulb out and have a look at it later on. But essentially, There you go. Now we stuck that headlight back on the car temporarily just to see the difference. And there you can see the seal beam sticking out there and the new lens with the reflector in the background. I don't know, you can kind of see the difference there, cross-sectional view. I think that these new lights are much better looking than the sealed beams, and the guy that I'm doing this for thinks they're better, so that's all that's important.